Alright, so picture this. You've got this massive bustling neighborhood, right? That's the Indian Ocean region. And in this neighborhood, you've got different security guards. One of these, a really crucial one, is the Pakistan Navy. Now, these folks are out there day and night, patrolling some of the world's busiest shipping lanes, keeping an eye on things, making sure the maritime peace, so to speak, isn't completely shattered. They're the maritime bouncers for a pretty vital stretch of water, the Arabian Sea, which is basically the watery highway for a huge chunk of global trade. So yeah, they're important, super important. You don't hear about them as much as, say, the army, but their job, absolutely critical for regional stability and making sure your Amazon package from that side of the world doesn't take an unexpected detour. Now here's the thing, and this is where it gets a bit, shall we say, complicated. Despite their vital role, the Pakistan Navy is kind of like that talented athlete who's got all the potential, but is playing with slightly older gear and maybe not the biggest cheering section, especially when you look at some of the other teams in the league. They're punching for sure, but are they punching above their weight, or are they just trying to keep up? Several factors are at play, a whole cocktail of challenges that limit their overall strength and capabilities, especially when you stack them up against some of their more, let's say, robustly equipped neighbors. It's like showing up to a Formula One race with a really well-maintained sedan. Good car, but the competition is fierce. So today, we're going to dive into what makes the Pakistan Navy tick, or perhaps what makes it tick a little slower than it would like. We're talking budget constraints that would make even the thriftiest accountant sweat, a fleet size that's more cozy than colossal, and a strategic reach that's more focused on the backyard pool than the deep blue ocean. It's a story of resilience, yes, but also one of significant hurdles. We'll look at why this maritime force, despite its undeniable importance and professionalism, often finds itself navigating some seriously choppy waters when it comes to matching the naval might in its very active neighborhood. Stick around because this is a deep dive you won't want to miss. So, let's talk money, or more accurately, the lack of enough money where it's arguably most needed for a balanced defense. In Pakistan, when the national defense budget is sliced up, it's no secret that the army usually gets the biggest piece of the pie. And it's a big pie, mind you, but the slices aren't always even. Think of it like a family deciding where to spend their cash. The army is like the kid who needs new everything for the big leagues, new shoes, new uniform, top-tier coaching. The Air Force gets a decent cut too. They're the flashy ones with the cool jets. And then there's the Navy, often feeling like the responsible sibling who's told, "We'll see what's left." This isn't to say they're ignored, but prioritization is a real thing, and historically, land-based threats have dominated Pakistan's strategic thinking, which naturally funnels resources towards the army. This budgetary reality has a direct, and I mean direct, impact on the Navy's ability to modernize and keep pace with rapidly evolving maritime technology. You see, naval assets, ships, submarines, advanced sensor systems, weaponry, they are incredibly expensive. We're talking sell a kidney, and maybe your neighbor's kidney too expensive. So when your share of the budget is consistently smaller, it means fewer new ships, slower upgrades for existing ones, and less investment in cutting-edge tech that could give you an edge. It's like trying to upgrade your smartphone every 5 years when the new models are coming out annually, each with game-changing features. You're always playing catch-up, trying to make the old reliable last just a little bit longer, while others are flaunting the latest and greatest. The consequence is a modernization process that can be best described as steady but slow. They are making progress, acquiring new platforms, but perhaps not at the speed or scale that the strategic environment demands. When your potential adversaries are out there commissioning advanced destroyers and nuclear submarines like they're going out of style, a constrained budget means you're constantly making tough choices. Do we invest in more patrol vessels for coastal security, or save up for that one really good frigate? It's a perpetual balancing act, and one that inevitably leaves some gaps in capability, forcing the Navy to be incredibly resourceful with what they have, stretching every rupee as far as it can possibly go, often focusing on asymmetric capabilities to counter more powerful foes. All right, Let's move from the bank account to the actual hardware, the ships themselves. When you look at the Pakistan Navy's fleet, the word modest often comes to mind, especially when you put it side by side with some of the other naval forces operating in the Indian Ocean. We're talking a respectable number of submarines, which are a key deterrent, and a collection of frigates and corvettes that form the backbone of their surface fleet. These are capable vessels, don't get me wrong, and they do their job diligently. But the sheer numbers aren't exactly overwhelming. It's like having a really good five-a-side soccer team. They might be skillful, but they're going to struggle if they're up against a full 11-man squad that's equally talented and has players on the bench. What's notably absent from their inventory are the real behemoths of naval power, things like aircraft carriers or large amphibious assault ships. Now, aircraft carriers are basically floating airbases, projecting air power hundreds of miles from shore. They are massive, complex, and outrageously expensive, not just to buy, but to operate and protect. Similarly, large assault ships allow a nation to land significant military force onto a hostile shore. Lacking these means, Pakistan's navy is inherently limited in its ability to project power far beyond its own waters or to undertake large-scale expeditionary operations independently. It's the difference between being able to defend your house very well and being able to set up a forward operating base in the next town over. This smaller fleet size has significant operational implications. It means fewer ships available for deployment at any given time, considering maintenance schedules, training cycles, and repairs. It means having to be very selective about where and how you deploy your assets because you can't be everywhere at once. If you're trying to patrol a vast coastline, monitor suspicious activity, participate in international task forces, and still keep a deterrent force ready, a smaller number of hulls stretches your resources incredibly thin. It's like trying to cover a king-size bed with a twin-size blanket. Some bits are inevitably going to be left out in the cold, no matter how strategically you try to arrange it. This makes it exceedingly hard to match the continuous presence and broader reach of larger regional rivals. So, we've talked about money, we've talked about the number of ships. Now let's talk about where those ships can effectively go and operate. Navies are generally categorized by their reach. Brown water for rivers, green water for coastal areas, and blue water for the deep open ocean, far from home. For the longest time, and well, largely still today, the Pakistan Navy has been primarily a green water navy. This means its main focus, its bread and butter, is coastal defense, protecting Pakistan's territorial waters, its exclusive economic zone, and its sea lines of communication close to shore. Think of it as being an excellent neighborhood watch, very effective at keeping the immediate area secure but not really designed or equipped to patrol the entire city. This isn't a criticism as much as a statement of operational reality, often dictated by the previously mentioned budget and fleet size. Operating far from your own shores in the deep blue requires specialized ships with longer endurance, sophisticated logistical support, like replenishment ships that can refuel and rearm vessels at sea, and advanced command and control systems to manage far-flung operations. While Pakistan has been working to enhance these capabilities, acquiring some more modern frigates with better range and participating in international task forces further afield, its capacity for sustained, independent blue water operations remains limited. It's like having a car that's great for city commuting, but might struggle on a long, unsupported cross-country road trip without frequent stops at very specific service stations. The implications of this limited blue water capability are significant in a region as vast and strategically important as the Indian Ocean. While they can contribute to multinational efforts closer to home, like counter-piracy operations in the Gulf of Aden, projecting significant naval power independently into, say, the South China Sea or the Mid-Atlantic, is currently beyond their scope. This constrains their ability to protect distant shipping interests, conduct long-range surveillance, or exert influence in areas further from their coastline. It means their strategic weight, while potent in their immediate vicinity, diminishes the further they try to operate from their home ports. Unlike navies that have invested heavily in aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, and extensive global logistics networks. Now imagine you're building the ultimate Lego castle, but you don't manufacture the bricks yourself. You have to buy them, and not just from any store, but from specific stores, often in other countries. This is kind of the situation Pakistan finds itself in when it comes to acquiring major naval platforms and advanced technology. While there's a domestic shipbuilding capacity, for the really big-ticket items, modern frigates, submarines, sophisticated combat systems, and aircraft, Pakistan heavily relies on foreign suppliers. Countries like China have become a major partner, supplying several new frigates and collaborating on submarines. Turkey is another key provider, with contracts for corvettes. This isn't unusual. Many nations procure defense equipment internationally. However, this dependence comes with its own set of strings, or at least potential complications. Firstly, it can affect strategic autonomy. When you're reliant on another nation for crucial military hardware, your foreign policy can sometimes be subtly or not so subtly influenced. Secondly, there are the practicalities of supply chains, maintenance, and upgrades. If geopolitical situations change, or if the supplier nation faces its own internal issues, the flow of spare parts, technical support, or future acquisitions can be disrupted. It's like having your car serviced by a mechanic who lives in another country and might suddenly decide they're too busy or don't want to sell you parts anymore. This can lead to delays in modernization programs and challenges in keeping the fleet operationally ready. Furthermore, while buying off-the-shelf or slightly modified designs can be cost-effective and quicker than developing everything indigenously, it might mean you're not always getting technology that's perfectly tailored to your unique operational requirements, or the very latest cutting-edge systems. The selling nation will, understandably, often keep its absolute best tech for itself. So, while Pakistan is getting capable platforms, there's always that question. Strategic imperatives and timelines. Let's talk geography, because where you are on the map plays a huge role in your naval strategy. Pakistan has a coastline that's about 1,046 kilometers long, fronting the Arabian Sea. Now that sounds like a lot, and it is a significant stretch to patrol and defend. However, compared to some other nations in the region, particularly its neighbor India, with a coastline stretching over 7,500 kilometers and access to 2 seas plus an ocean, Pakistan's maritime frontage is relatively constrained. This geographical reality shapes its naval posture, naturally focusing efforts on securing this specific, albeit vital, corridor. It's like having a storefront on a busy street prime location, but your expansion options are limited by the buildings next door. A key aspect of Pakistan's maritime strategy revolves around its ports, primarily Karachi, which handles the bulk of its seaborne trade and hosts major naval facilities. Then there's Gwadar, a deep-sea port further west, closer to the Strait of Hormuz, which holds immense strategic potential. It's often touted as a game-changer, part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. However, Gwadar is still in a developmental phase. While its strategic location is undeniable, offering a potential alternative to the congested Karachi port and a strategic toehold near a critical global choke point, its full operationalization as a major commercial and naval hub is a work in progress. Until Gwadar and other potential sites are fully developed with robust infrastructure and connectivity, the Navy's operational flexibility and basing options remain somewhat concentrated. These strategic constraints, a limited coastline relative to the vastness of the Indian Ocean, and the developing nature of alternative ports impact the Navy's ability to project power and sustain operations over wider areas. It means that naval assets are often tied to defending specific approaches and securing a relatively defined maritime zone, while efforts are underway to enhance port infrastructure and diversify basing. The geographic hand Pakistan has been dealt means it must be incredibly smart and efficient in how it deploys its naval forces. It's about maximizing the strategic value of every kilometer of coastline and every available port, because unlike nations with multiple coastlines or a string of overseas bases, their options for maritime outreach are inherently more focused and, in some ways, limited by the lay of the land, or in this case, the sea. So, after sailing through all that, what's the big takeaway? Well, the Pakistan Navy, bless their hearts and their hulls, is undeniably a professional and dedicated force, doing a tough job in a very complex neighborhood. They're making improvements, they're getting some new kit, and they're definitely not just sitting idly by. They're actively working to modernize and enhance their capabilities, which is commendable. You see them participating in international exercises, you hear about new ships being commissioned, and there's a clear intent to become a more potent maritime player. They understand the assignment, as the kids say. However, and it's a pretty significant however, they are still wrestling with some pretty hefty challenges. The budget constraints we talked about? Those are real, and they cast a long shadow over everything from buying new submarines to investing in next-gen cyber defenses. The technological gap, especially when compared to a neighbor like India, which is pouring serious money into its navy, is a persistent concern. And then there's the strategic reach. While they're very capable in their own backyard, becoming a true blue water navy that can project power across the vast Indian Ocean is still a journey with many nautical miles yet to cover. It's like they're diligently upgrading their ship, but the ocean keeps getting bigger and the other ships faster. Ultimately, the Pakistan Navy finds itself in a classic underdog story, striving to punch above its weight class. They are a vital component of Pakistan's defense and a key player in regional maritime security, no doubt about it. But the path ahead is strewn with financial hurdles, technological races, and the sheer limitations of geography. Whether they can successfully navigate these turbulent waters to significantly close the gap with their more powerful neighbors, well, that remains one of the big strategic questions in the Indian Ocean. It's a story of ambition meeting reality, and only time will tell how this particular voyage unfolds.